So I finally got around to reading Daring Greatly by Brené Brown. And honestly, it's one of those books that really makes you stop and think about how we live our lives. At first glance, you might think it's just about vulnerability, but it's so much deeper than that. Brown isn't telling us to be weak or careless. She's showing how embracing vulnerability is actually one of the strongest ways to connect, grow, and lead a more meaningful life. The central idea of the book is pretty simple but powerful. Vulnerability is not a weakness. In fact, it's the birthplace of courage, creativity, and meaningful connection. And yet, most of us do everything we can to avoid it. We hide our imperfections, shield ourselves from criticism, and pretend we have it all together. But in doing that, we cut ourselves off from real experiences, love, joy, innovation, and even success. Brown calls this the vulnerability paradox. We're afraid of being seen, but it's exactly that openness that allows us to truly live. One of the things that really resonated with me is how Brown frames shame. She explains that shame is this internalized fear that we're not good enough. It's a feeling that we're flawed or unworthy, and it keeps us hiding. The problem is that shame thrives in secrecy. It grows when we don't talk about it. By being vulnerable, we start to dismantle shame. Sharing our struggles, admitting mistakes, and being honest about our feelings allows us to build resilience and connect with others on a much deeper level. Brown also dives into the idea of courage. But this isn't the kind of courage most of us think about. It's not about fighting monsters or taking physical risks. It's about showing up even when you're afraid, even when the outcome is uncertain. It's about being willing to take emotional risks, like expressing your true feelings, asking for help, or putting yourself out there creatively. That kind of courage is what she calls daring greatly, and it's what transforms relationships, workplaces, and even society as a whole. One part that really hit me is when she talks about perfectionism. Brown makes a strong point that perfectionism is really just a shield, a way to protect ourselves from judgment and criticism. We think if we're perfect, no one can shame us. But the reality is that perfectionism doesn't make us better. It makes us afraid. It stops us from taking risks, creating, or being authentic. And ironically, it often leads to burnout, anxiety, and a sense of disconnection. Daring greatly means letting go of the need to be perfect and embracing the courage to be enough as we are. Another thing that stood out is how she connects vulnerability to leadership. Brown argues that the best leaders aren't the ones who appear invincible. They're the ones who are willing to admit mistakes, ask for feedback, and be open about their uncertainties. Vulnerability builds trust. People are more likely to follow and respect leaders who are real, honest, and willing to take risks, rather than those who hide behind authority or perfection. That was a game changer for me, especially thinking about workplace culture and collaboration. Brown also emphasizes the importance of connection. Human beings are wired for relationships, yet we often build walls out of fear of judgment, rejection, or failure. Vulnerability allows us to truly connect, to empathize, and to be seen for who we are. And connection, she argues, is a key component of resilience, creativity, and even happiness. We can't fully thrive if we're constantly hiding or protecting ourselves. One of my favorite parts of the book is when Brown talks about wholehearted living. She describes it as living with courage, compassion, and connection. It's about embracing vulnerability in everyday life, from parenting and friendships to work and creative endeavors. Wholehearted living doesn't mean life is perfect. It means being fully present, authentic, and willing to engage with uncertainty. And honestly, that perspective made me reflect on how much time I've spent trying to control outcomes instead of leaning into experiences fully. She also challenges the misconception that vulnerability is easy. It's not. It's uncomfortable, scary, and risky. But that's exactly why it's transformative. Every time you choose to be vulnerable, you're stepping into growth. You're moving toward authenticity, building trust, and creating opportunities for real connection. The discomfort is actually a sign that you're doing something meaningful. So here's my honest take. Daring greatly isn't just about being emotionally open. It's about redefining what it means to be strong. Vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. And it's essential if you want to lead a fulfilled life, build meaningful relationships, or innovate creatively. The book gives you both a mindset and practical tools for embracing vulnerability without losing yourself or your boundaries. At the end of the day, what makes this book so impactful is that it encourages reflection and action. It challenges you to show up, take risks, and let go of shame and perfectionism. And once you start practicing that in your own life, even in small ways, it changes everything from how you relate to others to how you experience yourself. Daring greatly isn't just a concept, it's a way of living. And it's one of the most powerful lessons I've taken away from any book in years.